Hello, and welcome back to Let's Replay Mystery Case Files Ravenhearst. I'm MCFPapa, and this is part 2. And, start off. I usually like to start off with the super puzzles if possible. But they even added, like, some clickable stuff, like turning the creepy picture into a skull, which doesn't add anything gameplay wise, but it still is like a nice touch. And this guy that screams. And I remember when I first played this, the laptop I had was so, crappy that it took, about a minute for the stupid blue goop to flow through the tube because it was so laggy and slow. And then, in case you're wondering what the servants' quarters look like, there it is. I do like the font, though, they use, and the whole aesthetic of, having a location map, but having it be blueprints of the house. That's just so clever, and really well executed. And what's interesting is you need keys in the final level, but the key locations already spawn in all the time throughout the game. Here's the one in the servants' quarters, so if you're observant, you can memorize where they all are beforehand. And that was weird. The tick-tock of the clock didn't quite loop right, so it just cut off mid-tick. And then they started in with the background audio again. And of course there's this, mask type thing. I presume it's a reference to Michael Myers. Just very creepy house. There's a tied noose just dangling out of the wall. And the creepiest thing is, this house is over 100 years old, but there's an apple that's still perfectly fresh. Though I guess you could argue it might be a fake wax apple or something. But then how do you explain the peas and the strawberry? Oh, and in this location, something interesting is the newspaper reads Dead Wife Times. I wonder how long that newspaper lasted for. key here is right there on, like, that creepy, like, statue. I'm not sure, like, what it's supposed to be a statue of, but it's a pretty creepy face. I do like, though, like, this scene's design of how, like, the stairways is pretty cleared off because you'd need to go up and down it, but, like, the floor space around it is as cluttered as can be because you don't need to walk through it. Maybe it's just because it reminds me of the staircase in my house. Oh, there's the sunglasses. Couldn't find them last level. I do, though, really like the drawings in this game because they are pretty nice. Although they do seem a bit detailed for, like, you know, since they're supposedly just drawn by Emma really quick with each entry. I mean, at this point in time, you'd think the amount of pencil used to draw them would be too much of a waste. Like, it costs too much to buy a new pencil that you gotta conserve it as much as possible. Anyway, entry 3, February 5th, 1895, courtship and proposal. For many months now, my days have been spent educating my students' young minds, while my evenings belong to my wonderful Charles. He often steals me from my chores, but the headmistress does not seem to mind. March 14th. After a delightful carriage ride this evening, Charles amazed me by dropping on one knee and producing the most beautiful engagement ring. This is the moment in life for which every young woman waits. A wealthy, handsome man asking for her hand in marriage. As Charles knelt before me, his request hanging in the air, I felt my breath catch. Yeah, that's one aspect that really doesn't make sense, given what we know about Charles later on. It's like, how did he become wealthy enough to commission and build this whole mansion when he was, like, had a pretty poor upbringing, both money-wise and conditions-wise, and then he was in an insane asylum where he met Emma, and then he became aware of Emma through, like, a newspaper he got in the insane asylum, and then he escaped and quickly went on to seduce her. So where did he get the money? Did Alistair give it to him? I'm not sure. Now this is a really nice skyline here in the grounds location. Oh, and something I'll like to talk about is that every one of these floors is unique by like the room layout and number of rooms, which is a nice touch so that it doesn't really get stale. Looking at you, Mystery Case Files Rewind, with your same floor layout for all 5 of your floors. And even ever since I was a kid, I would always go top down when doing the floors. And I'll try to demonstrate why if I can manage to find all the objects in these scenes. What's interesting is because there's 19 levels, some of these scenes occur like 6 times you visit them throughout the game, which is just weird to me. Even though like Huntsville and Prime Suspects had locations you visited even more than 6 times. But it's just weird to me because I'm so used to the damn Fate where there's one location you visit 5 times, guaranteed, that's the entrance. And then there's also the bumper cars, which you could potentially visit 5 times, but only if you don't collect enough morphing objects to unlock any of the other scenes. And that's it, all the other locations show up 4 times or less. Or fewer. Or whatever it is. Yeah, the less versus fewer debate is kinda stupid, because even if it isn't grammatically correct to say, like, 10 items or less, like, everyone knows what you mean by it, so what does it matter? Should go by, like, Jeopardy rules where, like, your spelling doesn't matter and your grammar doesn't matter as long as, like, the answer's correct and doesn't add, like, any extra sounds or anything. There's the gavel. Oh, Mr. Frog, excuse me. Mr. Toad is a character from something or other. But it's... this location is one of the ones that shows up 6 times, but usually I save it for absolute last, because I go from top floor down to bottom floor, and then on the first floor, like, this is usually the least engaging one, so I don't usually do it, like, for all 8 items. And there are quite a few, like, voice lines for Emma Ravenhearst, so it does get kind of repetitive, but there's enough variety that it doesn't feel too annoying or bad. But that's one thing they improved on in Madame Fate, where Madame Fate would give like just idle comments, but then also comments of praise if you got a bunch of items quickly, or annoyed comments if you didn't get an item correctly, like you misclicked a bunch. Maybe an issue too is that like I'm playing it in windowed mode, and so an 800 by 600 game on a 1080p monitor makes it kinda hard to see everything. Like, look at how tiny that pretzel was. Smaller than my cursor. Oh, and speaking of cursors, it's weird that this is the only Mystery Case Files game that doesn't have its own custom cursor to it. I mean, there is like a clicking hand with the super puzzles, but just for normal gameplay, you just use the default Windows cursor. I only have this one because of the one update to Windows 10 that came out several years ago that lets you change the color of your mouse cursor, so I changed it to orange in honor of Huntsville and Prime Suspects having orange cursors. Oh, and now you can see it always bothered me that then the incorrect floor would be put behind. So, like, the first floor is where the second floor should be. And that changing of the order always bothered me so much that I think maybe one playthrough I, like, didn't follow that rule, but every other time I always would follow it. And here there's good old Madame Zoltek. And there's like a creepy guy. You just gotta grind up a fish. Oh, and then gotta play tic-tac-toe. And then you can do the slot machine to get the fish. Soylent soap, keep it clean. That's pretty morbid. And then Madame Zoltek gives you a prediction, and it's just a printout of a key, which then you put into the paper cutout of the key, and that somehow opens the door. Not sure the logic behind that, but I'll take it if it means accessing the room. And then it's kind of hard to see because it's so little, but there's what the guest bathroom looks like. Because that's the thing too with having unique room layouts, is that some locations have huge images on the map, but others have pretty tiny ones. Especially the pantry. Fun fact, though, about this game is that the design of Ravenhearst was actually based off the real-life Carson Mansion in California. Though they actually like, made it look more simple and less fancy compared to the real life mansion. There's the compass. Oh. Right by the cat. In the center of the screen, pretty obvious to find. And then I still messed it up. I couldn't find it for a while. Okay, I guess I was like a millimeter off there, and that's why I couldn't get it. By the way, I've almost never read the actual diary entry while it scrolls here. I always would just hit next to go to it. Entry number 4, March 16th, 1895, indecision. I've avoided Charles these past days while I give his proposal its due measure of contemplation. I've awaited this experience for as long as I can remember, and I find myself wondering how different my life might become. March 17th, 1895. Yeah, it's just, it scrolls too fast to read out loud. After shedding many a tear, I made up my mind to decline Charles's proposal. It's so difficult to be certain that I made the correct decision, yet I feel my adult life is just now beginning to unfold. March 18th. The delay of my reply, coupled with my melancholy demeanor, must surely have wounded Charles this day. I've denied that which he has so graciously offered. Yeah, it makes me wonder if Charles would have been nicer and not as murderous if Emma had said yes to him, though I'd say there's a 98.8% chance that Charles would have still wound up killing her. But anyway, we'll continue on in the next part, so like and subscribe if you want. I'll see you then.